Hello everyone, my name is Ken King and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I tell interesting or scary stories that I found online, and if you have any stories that you'd like to share of your own, you can contact me on Instagram or even post on the subreddit page for the channel with the link down below in the description. But for now, enjoy the video. When I was young, I stayed at a friend's house for his birthday with another friend. Let's call them C and T. Well, for T's birthday, we were going to the woods on his father's land. He told us to be careful in the woods because there was a wild coyote that he was trying to catch because it was scaring away all the deer and other animals. So, as C, T and I went to play in the woods, I had felt like we were being watched by something, so I convinced my friends to leave the woods. Later that night, as we were going to bed, I told them what happened and they didn't pay it no mind until we heard tapping at the bedroom window. We tried to ignore it, but I got up to see what it was and didn't see anything at first until it opened its eyes. I had jumped back out of fear and they closed the curtains. We still don't talk about that night. Anytime I try to bring it up, they just get quiet and act like it never happened. The reason I bring this up is because now a couple of days ago, I had hot scratches on my back in my sleep, but woke up to a burning fingernail. The only problem was no one was around me or near me. So one day, me and my brother wanted to go to some woods that was right behind our trailer park we lived at the time, just because there was this huge beautiful bridge with a pavement trail. But in order to get there, we had to go through these woods with a dirt road at the entrance for the city to go empty out the pressure of the sewers. I don't know because I was like 9.5 at the time, but at the entrance that day, it was this tall, faceless white figure with no clothes, and me being a dumb little kid being excited. I didn't see it, but thank God for my big brother. He said, "Jake, stop." He said, "Don't move. Do you see that white, tall thing?" But both of us needed glasses, but it was spreading its arms. We saw it moving, so we knew for sure it was a human or something paranormal. But at the time my brother didn't have a phone, so what we did was we pedaled so fast it took 10 seconds to get to our house. Ever since that day, we didn't go back, but now we live in a new house. Keep in mind I lived in Raleigh at the time, and we never heard of a story of the Skinwalker. So if anyone can please tell me what I saw, I will leave it alone. I live in the rural parts of the US, in the woods, in a small home. I'm not too deep into the woods. There's a town just a half a mile from my home, and the driveway to my house is essentially a straight drive to this town. Why is this important? Because of what I'm going to speak about. This may seem insane, but I have been encountering a diseased deer within my woodland property. This deer has been alive for at least 3 months, and I have seen it 4 or 5 times. My girlfriend, however, claims to see it every day. Furthermore, she claims that this deer is an angel and that it whispers to her. At first, when she said these things, I assumed she was just teasing me, as in the past I had suggested it may be a skinwalker or other mythical creature. However, she quickly became obsessed with this creature. For example, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were eating dinner together at home. We were eating some cheap gas station hot dogs, as we were experiencing a major power outage and most restaurants were closed, and most of our food was spoiling. She suddenly looked out the window at the forest and became saying what amounted to, "I see it. I see the angel. It wants me close to it." She suddenly jumped up and ran outside. At this point I am freaking out. One of the people closest to me in my life has just proclaimed a completely insane statement and ran outside into the freezing night. I quickly shoved on my shoes and coat with no socks on and joined her outside. It must have taken me just a minute to get outside behind her, but she was already 30 feet away from me and into the forest. Keep in mind, she's barefoot and wearing long pants and a sweater. I catch up to her and she's just staring into the forest. I asked her if she was okay, and she just laughed it off and said, "Oh, I thought I saw that deer again." Huh. About a minute later, we were both back inside. This incident has been rolling around in my mind for a while. However, I could have shrugged it off as her just being slightly paranoid about her angel deer she keeps seeing, or once again her teasing me. But just 3 days ago, something happened that made me realize I cannot simply ignore her actions anymore. I wake up for no apparent reason at 2 a.m. My bedside is empty and my curtains undrawn. I'm tired, so I don't think anything of it, just shift around. The second I got comfy and convinced myself she was just in the bathroom, despite hearing no noise or taking a midnight walk, which we usually take together, I hear a scream outside. I jolt up and have the worst heart palpitation of my life. It's clearly my girlfriend screaming. I hop up and jolt outside with a speed higher than my heart's BPM. My girlfriend is laying outside nearly naked, looking up at the sky, pointing with one hand saying, "He's back! He's back!" I am freaking out now. I literally started crying. I don't know why, I just started crying. The sight of her just laying there, screaming at nothing, made me so worried for her. I brought her back in, crying, and was debating calling mental health services. I didn't just want to go back to sleep and risk her doing something to herself and getting back up. But she's never had any mental health issues before this. The worst I know of is that she used to have panic attacks and went through an emo phase in college. But after weaning off caffeine, her panic attacks subsided. And besides the incident of her running outside the other night, she's never had any issues with mental health. So this is all shock to me. I stayed up all night talking to her. She just wanted to forget about everything. The next morning I asked her if she thought she needed therapy. She seemed confused about this. She said she was fine and was just stressed about our future and her career. From that day on, she's never mentioned the deer/angel. Am I just being an overprotective boyfriend? If not, what steps should I take to ensure she's safe? My grandfather has always been a superstitious man. He was born out west in Upper Arizona, off of any city limits, not far from Antelope Canyon. When he was in his teens, his family moved to southern rural Virginia to go live and help out with the family farm. The farm has been in our family for generations, since my ancestors came to America. They were promised a great sum of land if they were to help in the battle. With this sum of land, they became one of the founding families for Blacksburg, VA, a small city in one of southern Virginia's mountainous valleys. Though the majority of the original land has been sold to the city of Blacksburg, the farm still sits on the side of the mountain in a great forest roughly 10 miles off of city limits. Growing up, my grandfather had told me many stories about his time in the woods as a young boy. He would tell me of human-like creatures that moved on all fours, but the second you noticed it was there, it would stand up and walk on its hind legs as if it had been doing that the whole time. He told me stories of graveyards that appeared during the day but vanished at night. He told me of creatures coming up to the house and peering in windows, watching behind trees. He would explain cattle being slain at random times of the year with no explanation. There are no bears there, and there was no way coyotes could tear apart cows in that manner. He'd tell me of hearing voices. Voices of his wife, his son, his mother coming from the woods when he was working with cattle, although there was never anybody there. My father tells me my grandfather knows more than what he is telling, but it scares him to talk about it. He could never tell us what exactly the creatures were, just that they were there, and to never go in the woods alone. He told me that he had been stalked by creatures that came in different forms his whole life. I believed all of it to be an old man's tale, until recently. I am 18 now and a female. I live with my parents in Midwestern North Carolina. However, I'm moving to the rural North Carolina Appalachian Mountains now. I am not a religious person, but I do believe in the paranormal. I consider myself to be a spiritual person. I'm interested in differing energy, bonding with animals, crystals, and manifestation. Through my spiritual journey, I have only dealt with good energy, up until recently. Last month, I was sitting in the car with a few of my friends. I'd come home from college to hang out with my hometown friends. It was about 11 p.m. and we were sitting in a parking lot, along the woods with the car completely off, just talking. We all went silent for a bit. Suddenly, I became overwhelmed by a sense of heaviness. I was uneasy. I scanned the tree line, and that's when I saw them. 2 animals. They looked like dogs. They were both standing very still and looking at us. I asked my friends if they saw them too. nobody else could see them. After 10 minutes of trying to point them out, I gave up, but the dogs kept watching. Other things like this have occurred too. One time I was riding in the car down a desolate wooded road at night with one of my guy friends. All of a sudden, I saw a person in the headlights walking across the road, as if it couldn't see us coming down. I yelled for my friend to watch out, but he told me nobody was there. I looked around, and there was nobody there. I could have sworn I watched someone walk across the road. I once was up late, and making a snack to watch Netflix, as many people my age do. I always close the blinds at night, because what goes on at night outside scares me. We live in a quaint neighborhood surrounded by miles of forest. I always make sure to close the blinds and lock the doors. This particular night, my parents had warned me to make sure all of the doors were locked, as people had been knocking on our door. In the middle of the night, when my parents would check it, nobody would be there. While I was closing the blinds on this night, I saw something. 2 deer. They were staring at me from across the street into the house. I could see their eyes twinkling from the light of the houses. With a pit in my stomach, I shut the blinds. I knew I was being watched at this point. I have started wearing an amethyst necklace to bring protection. I wondered if my manifestations had brought about a negative energy. But I had never been manifesting negative things or stripping people away from their free will. Mostly, I've been manifesting that I'd be able to transfer out of my current school and be able to go to school in the North Carolina mountains. This came true, and Thursday I will move to my new school. Because it is heavily wooded, rural and mountainous, I fear I will have more encounters. I'm worried that whatever tormented and followed my grandfather for so long is now following me. I'm not sure what to do and how to protect myself from it. I am not sure how others aren't able to see the things I've been seeing. If you have any advice, help me out. I am a Cherokee native and my family lives in/around the Smoky Mountains. In our culture we don't have skinwalkers, but we have spirits, spider grandmother, and moon-eyed people. I believe what I saw was a spider grandma. I was walking through the woods with my cousin when I got a feeling of dread. My cousins wanted to go back, so we did. On our way back, there was a bobcat in the middle of the driveway. It let out a scream that was like that of a woman's. It sounded more like a mountain lion than a bobcat. Later that night, I heard the sound of a woman mumbling and screeching. At the time, I was 8 years old and brushed it off as spider grandmother, who's overall a good thing. When I was 8, I did not know exactly what a spider grandmother was. On October 21st, 2022, at 23:20, I was camping at a popular campground in Oklahoma called Marvel Camping Resort. I was sitting by a fire pit with only embers burning. I was watching TikTok, sitting alone, when suddenly all the hairs on my body stood on end. I look around and see nothing, but can hear rocks being pushed around by something walking on them. I go back to watching TikTok when the sounds of the rocks start getting closer, within 30 yards of me. I get a dangerous feeling. I start looking around and see a dark shadow moving slowly. It walked on all fours, and its back coming up to my head while I'm sitting down. Once I notice it, it slowly moves behind a cabin out of my view. My first thought was someone's dog got out and was roaming. After roughly 4 minutes, I get the sensation of being watched again and look towards where I saw the creature. The creature bolts down by the river into some bushes, just 10 yards away from me. While it was running, I caught a glimpse of it. It appeared fairly smooth, grey, and moved quickly on all 4 legs. I immediately got up and moved onto the front porch of my cabin. After moving, I still had the sensation of being watched, and everything in my body told me to go inside. So I did. I continually heard noises coming from outside the cabin the rest of the night. Did I see a skinwalker? Or was it something else? And that's all the stories for the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and comment down below which one you enjoyed the most. Again, if you have any stories you'd like to share with me, you can post on my subreddit page for the channel. There are links down below in the description, along with links to support the channel, whether it's through Patreon or even a buy me a coffee. But if you'd also like to support me in any kind of way, there are a few links down below as well where you can buy my novel. If you like horror, you'll definitely love the book. But until next time, bye bye.